New business, letter F. We're actually move that into old business, and we're going to move that to A.
Okay.
Old business, new business F, non-renewal of a probationary teacher under old business number A now,
Number 8, okay.
or letter A.
All right. And that way, should you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. Should you not want to stay, that's what you think. So, moving along to, so we need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Sorry.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving along to approval of previous minutes. So we have the motion that the Board of Education approves the minutes of February 26, 2024 as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving along to consent agenda. With the consent agenda, we have the district bills as of March 18th, 2024, the building activity report, the non-certified personnel recommendations. We have no resignations at this time, but we do have 2 hires. We have Brianne Heingay, who's the 1-on-1 aide at Northside, and Bob Stone, who is the fresh sophomore baseball coach at Morrison High School. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? No? Okay, roll call?
Wilkers?
Yes.
Eagleton?
Yes.
Cromwell?
Yes.
Wilkins? Yes. Singleton?
Yes.
Lucky?
Yes. Okay, so moving on to communication public comments.
I'm going to have Mr. Williams speak first.
Okay.
If that's okay, because the other 3 are on the same topic.
Sure, okay.
Okay with the board? It's okay with
Yeah.
you?
Do I need to stand, or am I good sitting?
You're good sitting.
All right, just an update on the greenhouse. We mailed out the final payment. So we come in at just under $30,000 for the greenhouse. So I should be getting confirmation of that shortly. We still have roughly between $8,000 and $10,000 left in the fund for the greenhouse, which out of that money, we do have to pull the 2 heaters. We're gonna get those a little cheaper than what they were able to provide them for. Save some money on that. Some of that money is going to go towards landscaping outside of it. And an idea that we have kicked around is something that we would actually come and present to you guys at a later date if we had the funds. The drive-in between the posts where everybody drives into that field, that open area, we've kicked around the idea of if that could be paved all the way back to the greenhouse. That would make it a much nicer spot for the school and for anybody to use to pull into that grass area, because that's usually muddy, you know. So that's an idea that we've kicked around at the alumni a couple times to look at funds for that. So just a quick update on that everything is going forward, and we're still looking at June 3rd delivery, hoping to be done with it completed by the 1st of August. So, and we do have another fundraiser coming, it sounds like. We had the Morrison Garden Club reached out to us. They want a speaker April 11th to come, and so it's getting, you know, quite a bit more enthusiasm from the town. So, but that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And before we move on to other public comments, just because I know we have more people here that may not have spoken before, as a reminder, school board meetings, they're private meetings that are held in public. So it's not something that, you know, the school board would interact necessarily. It's not that sort of public discussion. And, you know, when it comes to matters of employment, the board does not respond confidential. So I just want to put that out there, but we certainly welcome citizen input to any of our meetings. And we just ask that the comments are within 3 minutes is what that is set aside. So the first one, we have Nick.
Nicholas Alvarado. Sitting among us today is a decorated Afghanistan war veteran. 212. 212 is the number that this gentleman, along with his group, successfully captured a Taliban warriors, military ages. 12. 12 represents the number that this gentleman and his group successfully eliminated from the Afghanistan war. I think we all know who that gentleman is in this room. Now I'm going to go back to COVID. As you all know, we jumped ship. I'm a licensed plumber, run my shop. My wife's a flight attendant. Morrison wasn't for us during that period. There's nobody that was going to be at home with my son for e-learning. Okay, so we jumped ship. 6th grade. Life was good other than the commute back and forth. Okay, fast forward to 7th grade. You know, my son has a lot of friends here, and I lost the boat. He's back. He was back here for 7th grade. Worst year of our life. I mean, wife and I still married. You know, it wasn't that bad, but worst year of our life education-wise. Fast forward to 8th grade. I put my foot down and I was like, 8th grade, you're going back to St. Mary's. Okay. His second day of 7th grade, when I dropped him off, before he got out of my truck, he looked at me, and keep in mind, he's 12 or 13 years old, I guess, at that age. He looked at me and said, Dad, he's like, you want to know the biggest difference between St. Mary's and Morrison?
1 minute. Just giving you an update.
I'm like, of course, you know. And he's like, the teachers at St. Mary's actually care. And to hear that from a 12 or 13-year-old with an innocent soul, I mean, that breaks your heart, you know. And it broke my heart knowing that I allowed him to come back for 7th grade. So anyway, fast forward to 8th grade. 8th grade was great. Grades were good, you know. I mean, even his principal at 8th grade graduation, she noticed the learning curve from when he was in 6th grade to 8th grade. And she made it known to me. She made it known to Rhonda that, you know, you're raising a very, very well young man.
We're getting close on time.
Good. I lost the vote again for high school, but the moral of my story is Chandler's given me faith and given my son faith that there can be teachers in this school district that care. Okay. And I'd really hate to see him go.
Okay, Jason?
It's gonna be tough for me. I'm Jason, I'm Chandler's dad. So I'm not really good at, I get a little emotional and he knows that, but I'm just gonna read because it'd be easier for me to do that, what my wife typed up. I just want to thank everyone for coming first. I mean, I really appreciate it. I know that he does as well. It's very nice to see everyone come and show up for Chandler. So, I mean, my feelings that I'm reading my wife's letter here, mine are the exact same way. So I'm just going to read it and, let you guys know what my wife says as well. We've raised 3 amazing, smart, and caring sons. Raised them to be courteous, polite, correct. 3 Air Force veterans, all 3 of them. The community itself has obviously spoken. The students, the parents, colleagues have shown compassion to keep Chandler at his job. Being a single young father is also not easy these days. Something that he's also working on and tackling, and I think he's doing a heck of a job. So I know there may be some single dads or parents out there, you know what it's like to juggle, school, FFA, extracurriculars, track, stays over for volleyball games, basketball games, volunteers time. I'm obviously, there's no lack of effort on my part. I'm simply asking, the things that he's been told are need to work on, give it some time. And we all make mistakes, all of us. And I think that's what I'm asking for, is that you consider that, we've had 2 different principals. So he's really only had a few months of time to spend with someone, and it's affecting his career. I think the students definitely I know they do. I went to every Morrison football game last year, and I live in Anaheim. We played I say we because I'm now Morrison. We played the Titans, and that was our home school. That's where we went to school. So his heart and soul is in Morrison, period. I mean, he puts everything he has into it. So there was a little more that she wanted to say, but she says, I know my son and I know his love for teaching. I know how much he wants to teach the children the value of hard work and dedication. You don't want to lose an amazing asset as the man you have in front of you. He's here to educate and encourage every young person he can. Don't let Chandler get away from this amazing school. So that's all I have to say. And again, thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And we have Chase.
I'm Chase Newman, a senior at the high school. Teaching style, relationships with students, and effort, the three most important attitudes of a teacher, according to a student survey conducted by Inside Higher Education. As an overworked high school student, having a teacher who exemplifies these three attributes, it makes my life easier and my education more enjoyable. In my opinion, nobody has a better combination of these three characteristics than Mr. G. When I heard that Mr. G's contract wasn't getting renewed, I was shocked, confused, and most importantly, hurt. Mr. Gilbraith hasn't just taught me so much about the ag field, but he has become a trusted advisor and someone I can talk to about anything. Mr. G actively goes out of his way to build meaningful relationships with his students, which means the world to us as young adults. Obviously, some kids don't put in effort in school, but the relationships he builds makes a lot of kids want to try their hardest, which is rare. His teaching style is one of my favorites in the high school. I personally am not a farm kid, but the way he teaches about animals makes me remember so much more than if he was just to read off a slide. Need to know how to conduct a C-section on a pig? I got you. Need to know how to unbloat a calf? I can tell you that too. I genuinely remember those things because he makes them so interesting. He shows constant effort by helping around our community, raising his two kids, coaching track and field, and showing up to some extracurricular events. Seeing a teacher care so much about their students is rare and builds a great culture. That brings me to why it is a terrible idea to not renew Mr. G's contract. Culture. As a senior at this high school, I know better than any board member or executive about our culture at this school. To be honest, it's terrible. We have students who destroy property, don't show up, and waste away their education. Firing a beloved teacher will make that worse. Mr. Mills had begun to uplift our culture, but if we fire teachers that students look up to, it ruins the entire mission. Mr. G is a culture builder. He coaches, holds students accountable, and builds great relationships. Let's be honest with ourselves as board members. We as a school district are not in a place to fire somebody that helps our school so much. Look at how much the students care about him. Students are taking time away from their day to write genuine letters asking you to keep Mr. G. If you don't take anything away from this letter, please ask yourselves as principals, board members, and leaders of our school district this. Is firing a teacher who is loved by the students, coaches multiple sports, and is a great role model going to help our school or hurt our school? These letters, and this letter specifically, are coming from the students telling you what they want. We are in his class every day. We see the efforts he puts in. It is the board's job to do what's the best for the students, and the students have spoken. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming in and speaking. So we are going to move on at this point now to good news from around the district.
For Northside, I just wanted to say that kindergarten screenings are finished. We have 73 students that we have screened, and the good news for us at Northside, if all 73 come next year, that'll be our largest class in the building, and that'll be the second largest class, K through 5.
Nice.
All right, for Southside, we had 197 adults attend the grandparents and VIP lunch with the students. They got to take those students through the book fair, which was really exciting for the kids. Literacy night was a really huge success at Southside. Mrs. Wolver put a lot of time and effort into that, along with the full staff at Southside. After the book fair was over, we received over $4,200 in free books for the classes and for the library. So that was a really good highlight for us this month.
Once again, apologize for not getting right in there. Two things I like to just talk about. The Quiz Bowl season, I did put that both our 7th and 8th grade teams are conference champs. Our 8th grade team was undefeated. They were 10-0 in the season, but that group, I forgot to mention last year, 7th graders were undefeated as well. So those kids, 2 years, are 20-0 for Quiz Bowl, for those kids coming up. So great job by them. And then I'm going to talk about it again, I have already, but we are, our map assessment scores were just, once again, they were for us off the charts. So proud of the kids, the staff, the teachers, everybody, for making that happen. So we are going to do a little incentive for those kids. We decided for this first one, because we didn't know how it was going to go. We're going to go and let every kid participate in this one, just because as a school we did so well. And now that we've done it once, we're going to be able to, for the spring one, kind of gauge, exactly what they need to do in order to receive certain things. But we're going to level it, so that every kid gets something. They might get this prize and then this incentive and this incentive and this incentive, and keep building. But once again, just so proud of our kids and everybody for how well they did on it.
Awesome, thanks.
All right, since we last met, we had a number of things going on over at the high school. First one is Mr. Otting was chosen as staff member of the month for February. He was recognized at lunch. I always buy lunch for the staff. Not surprisingly, Mr. Otting chose to forego his lunch, and he gave that donation to my polar plunge. So that was pretty awesome. I always buy food for the kids, so he shared some cheese sticks with the kids at lunch. If you've noticed, and I shared this out through my weekly email and slideshow with staff, you might notice Officer Simmons' vehicle parked in front of the high school. That was something I talked with Superintendent Vance and Chief Valderas about, just having a more visible location for the school resource officer. And also, an advantage that Chief mentioned was it really decreases if he has to go somewhere quickly. He can exit the front of the building really quickly. And that's just, it's something I noticed, so I shared that out. So don't be alarmed if you see that. That's just simply a more visible location for him. We have a program that we do each year with Sauk Valley Community College. They have an academy where high school seniors can begin taking a full junior college caseload. Gavin Streets Wood was nominated and then ended up getting into that program this year. So next year as a senior, he'll be attending full-time at Sauk Valley Community College. You get a jump start on that, really get going. He's currently at WAC doing our computer network program over there and doing excellent. So he's going to be moving into that field and probably finding employment very quickly after college. So that's awesome. The next three things, we're all recognizing the same student. From our girls basketball team, I've been around schools for 18 years, and Cameron Beltrop this year has received a number of really impressive accomplishments. She made 2 all-state teams for the Illinois Media and the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association. She also was the player of the year for Sauk Valley Media in girls basketball. So just a really successful season. They made it to the regional championship. And at the same time, some individual accomplishments I wanted to recognize. Cameron's a junior. She broke the scoring record this year. We'll be coming back next year looking to advance that. We have another successful student athlete, Jordan Deeds, signed her national letter of intent on February 27th to attend Hawkeye Community College and play softball. So that's very exciting. She's really gung-ho about that. I don't think that she's totally figured out which classes she's going to be taking, but she's excited to continue playing softball and attending school. March 7th, had 3 MHS students attend a youth advisory council down in the Capitol with our State Senator Wynn Stoller. Mr. Bartos took students down. They participated locally in a similar setting over at Sauk Valley, and then they went down to Springfield here in the spring. Again, I want to thank everybody that donated to my polar plunge. I ended up doing one at the school with the kids before March Madness after our assembly. It's all money goes to Special Olympics. My polar plunge raised over $3,200 this year. That'll all go to that. Has a special place in my heart, as you guys know. So that was awesome. Kids, I challenged them to raise $100, and I would do the polar plunge, and they raised $440. So they did an awesome job, and that was all kind of part of March Madness. The student council puts that on. We had a chance to come down and see that. It's one of the things about Morrison, a lot of really unique traditions. Because Mr. Robbins said his dad played in that basketball game as a staff member like 50 years ago. So that's really neat to see that type of stuff that just continues going on. So, I also had just some things to hand you guys. You'd asked about maybe doing a survey, getting some feedback from staff on like traditional versus block schedule. I just made it real simple. I did just that. So it's a 5-point scale of preference for a traditional schedule or a block schedule individually. So you guys can look these over. You wanted kind of that feedback from some staff. This was anonymous, didn't collect their emails, so what it'll allow me to do, I can share this with them and then I can further that conversation with them. Not like shocking results, you guys can look at them. The preference for the traditional schedule was on average a 2.67. Preference for a block schedule is like a 3.6. So I think I kind of knew that, we kind of knew that going into it, but you guys can look that over. Like I said, this will allow me to continue working with and talking with my staff about it, and possibly examining some of the issues or shortcomings maybe we wouldn't have seen. So I appreciate you guys kind of giving me that direction and wanted to give you that feedback. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, everyone, for those reports. So moving on to additional reports, we have the finance and facility report. And I can kind of talk over what we went over a little bit in our meeting. And there are some items on here that we're going to talk about in more depth as there are action items or discussion items on the agenda. So the first thing is the track. We did get a lower bid in. It's in the board packet as opposed to the close to $1 million bid. We now are sitting at about 626, which is, you know, certainly a more significant, a better savings for us and more what we had in mind for the track. We kind of budgeted about $500,000 to $600,000 with the bond money that we have. So that's something that we as a board can discuss in more detail. There's some add-on options, whether we, you know, put an M on there, colors, different things like that will factor into the cost, but that number is definitely better than what we were looking at before. When we're looking at the door replacement, it did come in a little bit ahead of what we were.
The architect adjusted his estimate as to what it would come in. His initial estimate was $670,000. Based on a bid he received from another local school district, he amended that to about $550,000 for all three floors.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the $50,000 maintenance grant to contribute to that.
Right.
So the district cost would be $500,000.
500. Last month, Matt had mentioned potentially starting just with one floor and then moving on to more as we see fit. But the architect thought that we would get a better deal if we were to do them all at once, because if you do one floor, the next year, the prices could change. And so having them all at once is going to keep with consistency and the pricing. We have it budgeted as well. So just something to keep in mind as we're looking at those bids. And then, you know, the process would be we'd look at bids and kind of go from there. We also talked about the scoreboard potential. That also was in the board packet of information. This would be the indoor scoreboard for like basketball games at the high school. It'd be volleyball, yeah, anything used in that gym. It'd be about $100,000. We would get money from advertising, and so that is something that the one-time fee of the scoreboard could potentially give us more revenue for athletics and for that in the future. And I think that's
But there's a software renewal.
there's a subscription for that, exactly.
For what?
$6,000 a year.
Yeah, right. So we'd have to kind of make sure we can offset that cost with the advertising. But if we could do so, that's going to be, you know, a cost that we can bring that money in and help pay for the different sports. You know, we did talk a lot about capital projects, and I think we'll get into that more. We have a list of just what we're prioritizing and how we have the money and what we're looking to spend that on. So we can kind of save that for that discussion. And then I wanted I see this comment on Facebook every month about the lease money for this building. And so I just wanted, we have a good audience here tonight too, to address where it is, because it's always a question, where does this money come from? So the state provides the district money that has to be used in a lease format. In the past, we've leased technology or vehicles and different things like that. That is where the money that this office is used for. At the time, the board at that time decided that was the best use of that lease money. If when the lease is up, whoever is on the board decides not to, that's something that, you know, they'll discuss at that time. But I know that was always a question, and I just wanted to address it. Am I missing anything? No? Okay. So while I saw it up there, I wanted to make a note of it during the facility report. Okay, so we can move on to enrollment.
So, good news, bad news, as happens to be normally with enrollment. We are up 5 from last month. We are still down about 16 people from where we were at last year.
Okay, and then teacher advisory.
We had our teacher advisory committee meeting on Wednesday. We discussed a number of topics, some of things that have been, circulating in the community, aids, the status of some of our aids as we are looking at possibly some cost-saving measures. The superintendent search was discussed. Another thing that came up was the preschool. That has been a topic of conversation for this board and then the administrative team. And some people are wondering, how could you talk about getting rid of the preschool? Well, I had a nice PowerPoint, but my computer died, so I'm just going to kind of wing it here. So the preschool is a Preschool for All program, which is supported by a grant that is provided by the state of Illinois. It is designed to not be self-sufficient, but it is designed to allow districts to offer affordable pre-K education for at-risk students. Our program is made up of usually between 40 and 45 students. Right now we have about 50. We have 2 sections. We have a morning and we have an afternoon. In order to get into the preschool, students need to fall into one of 2 categories. They either need to be what I would classify as pre-special ed or have an IEP, or an at-risk. And every year our preschool staff screen anyone that shows up and wants to be screened. There is a assessment that we use that ranks certain parts of individual students' lives and scores them or ranks them as to at risk or least at risk. Those students that qualify are then allowed into the preschool, and it is a free program. They don't pay for anything. They don't pay for transportation. They don't pay for milk. They don't pay for snacks. They pay for nothing. It is an absolute free program for them to get in, which is an amazing thing, and certainly something that the district would love to continue. The problem, however, is when we look at the costs of the preschool, when the board considers this year we are estimated to spend in just salaries, insurance, benefits, and busing $331,393. The grant is $133,000. So the district is spending $197,000 out of the education fund with no additional revenue coming in. Next year, we're looking at an overall cost of just those expenditures. It doesn't include assessments. It doesn't include speech language pathology contracts. It doesn't include incidentals. It doesn't include snacks. Just salaries, benefits, and busing. We're looking at $372,000 or roughly $240,000 that the district is going to have to pay to have that preschool. So I don't think anyone on the board is saying that preschool is not important, but a serious discussion is going to have to take place amongst the Board of Education and the new superintendent about the feasibility and the long-term viability of $240,000 in a program that doesn't bring in any revenue whatsoever. And the state is very, very specific on what you can and can't do. So some people at home or here might be saying, well, why don't you just charge them? You can't do it. It's got to be absolutely free. And everybody qualifies for busing, even if they live across the street. Busing is about $60,000 a year.
I think that sometimes one of the harder things to understand about school finance until you really get into it is that there isn't just a lump sum. So when you are buying a, new bleachers at the football stadium or whatever, that's not money that we can use for teacher salaries. And I think that's sometimes confusing that we have certain funds in which the money gets, we can spend out of, and that you can move money around in. So when we have things like our bond payments, when we have our sales tax, 1% sales tax, that could only be used for permanent structures. We can't use that to pay salaries out of. So while that's a great, we're getting 1.3 million, from the county with that money, it's not something we can use to fund a program that way. So we're kind of trying to look at, with these, us spending money on new doors doesn't mean we're cutting a pre-K program. It doesn't work the same way. And we're trying to make sure that we can use the money we have in those accounts in the best way possible. So we're not seeing disruptions, and yet we're also, fixing what we need to for the safety of the school. And I think that's always in a really tough position.
Any
Any
questions?
questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to old business.
So
We
we
have
have a new change here. So the motion is the Board of Education considers and approves the resolution of non-renewal of a non-tenured teacher.
Did you have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Second, okay. Any discussion? Okay, we will roll call.
Combo,
Present.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Engelkens,
Yes.
Folkers,
Yes.
Pivotalson,
Yes.
Lucky.
Yes. Okay, so moving along to, this is now item
Letter B.
B, we have the IHSA renewal.
Motion is the Board of Education approves Morrison High School's IHSA membership renewal as presented.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? This is pretty standard. This happens every year. that we
It's a
approve this.
$50 fee.
Yeah, $50. We roll call this with money? Okay, so roll call.
Pivotalson,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Combo,
Yes.
Engelkens,
Yes.
Folkers,
Yes.
Lucky.
Yes. Course reimbursement.
Motion is the Board of Education approves the course reimbursement request for Ann Brackemeyer and Sierra Stanton for the current CBA.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we can roll call this.
Combo,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Engelkens,
Yes.
Folkers,
Yes.
Pivotalson,
Yes.
Lucky.
Yes. Moving on to high school schedule, we may move
We can
this
skip that
because
that was
we,
what we were going to talk about.
Yes.
He touched on it.
yeah, and we can have time to look that over. And
Yeah, if you have questions next month, we can dive deeper into it, or
Perfect, okay. So moving on to the summer's driver's education.
The motion is the Board of Education approves the summer driver's education program as presented.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, any discussion?
Is that, it's triggered only if there's sufficient interest, right?
Yes.
And is there sufficient interest?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
there is,
Good.
yeah, because for scheduling, it's pretty hard to get them scheduled, in that time frame during their coursework year, so it allows them to take their 15 at the time.
and if spots are open, Mr. Bartos works with local driver's ed teachers, and kids from other schools will come. So even if we don't fill it, every slot will be filled. It pays for itself completely.
They have to have 9 months of driver's ed before they can get their license, so they may be 16, but they haven't had the 9 months yet, so we're gonna make sure they can fit. Okay, any other questions? Do we need to roll call this one?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so moving on to the sign at the Morrison Junior High.
All right, for the last time. The motion is that the Board of Education approves the repair of the junior high digital sign for the cost of $21,410 as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, discussion. So I'm gonna once again put this out there, that we have money that we want to spend. This comes from our tax, 1% sales tax. We're using the facility bond to use for the doors. Plus we have our bond money that we were wanting to make our projects for. The sign would fall into that, and so that is where that's coming from. So I just wanted to, once again, be clear before voting.
Okay.
All right, so let's roll call.
Engelkens,
No.
Folkers,
Yes.
Pivotalson,
Yes.
Combo,
No.
Wilkins. Yes. Lucky.
Yes. Moving on to, the high school, track resurfacing bid.
So we're gonna have nothing. All right, so the motion is the Board of Education approves the quote of $626,000 from track surfaces to replace the high school track.
Do I have a motion? I'll second. Okay, so discussion.
So, the reason why this didn't have to go through the formal bid process is that we are part of a purchasing co-op, unbeknownst to me, that was, let me know, or Scott Johnson, our architect, let me know. So he reached out to Track Surfaces, who initially did some repairs, so they're very familiar with that. They came, did some looking around, they did some core samples and things like that. So they came back with a much lower bid of, what did I say, it was $626,280. That's a base fee. That's to have everything stripped down, new put in, new paint, all that stuff. There's a couple of alternates that we can add to that. The first one is adding an M on the lawn, the high jump pit. I think there's one there now, isn't there? That is an additional cost of $6,800. There's another alternate bid where they could, instead of just having the colored diamonds or triangles in the exchange lanes, that whole lane would be colored, a different color. That's $27,459. If we use the material that we had left over from the original bid several years ago, that's been sitting in storage for 18 to 24 months, they'll take $48,000 off the total cost. Scott's recommendation is you not take that alternate because the warranty for that used stuff is only going to be about 5 to 7 years. The normal warranty is 10 to 15. So you're going to get less warranty. In the Finance and the Facility Committee meeting, it was recommended that we accept the base bid of $626,280 and the alternate bid of $6,865 to add the M to the high jump pit. So if there's support for that, we would need to amend the motion to add all that up together.
Okay,
That's now for you guys to discuss.
discussion.
5-year warranty, is that what I'm reading?
I think if you use the old stuff, I could be wrong though.
5-year warranty,
Okay.
400 track system.
I just went on what Scott told me.
Okay.
So
And my next question is, if we don't do this, this thing is
it's
unusable
unusable, yes.
and unsafe, not just for the school, but for the community. Is that right? We would have to bar the community
I would guess we would probably have to.
for liability issues.
I would say
Like as you
more
said
than
before,
likely,
that I
yes.
see walking the track, that's all done. Okay, all right.
So what are we not getting on this bid that we got out of the other bid?
There's probably, this does not include some of the minor landscaping, but their landscaping issues are much less than what originally called for. They're essentially saying you can have a local landscaper come in and just take a skid loader and then we're not adding some of the drainage that was recommended by the previous architect. Scott doesn't feel as though that's needed. But if you cut down the area, the high grass around the track, you'll get better drainage.
And didn't you say this bid comes from someone that, actually, he did the original track?
They have worked on the, I don't know if they put it in, but they have
worked on
done
it,
work
fixed
on
it.
this track, whether they
Yes.
put it in or they've done repair work.
So they know what they have.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're local, they're out of Illinois, they're not out of Missouri. So yes, if you choose not to spend the money, you will essentially have to probably close the track down.
How many kids are off track this year?
I don't know, they all just left.
Yeah, all those kids that were here.
Yeah, there's a large number of track. Both boys and girls have very full teams, like
Yes.
probably 20, 25 kids each.
You also have a junior high track, which is probably.
Yeah, so the junior high track team, I think, is also enormous, about 45, 50 kids.
60 kids out.
There you go.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, there's large stretches that are fine, but there's definitely.
Yeah, no, I've walked it.
You know.
I mean, if we're only got 2 kids off track, it's like, you know.
No, I'd say outside of football and maybe wrestling, the boys and girls track is together, so you get twice.
Right. Yeah.
And it's, when he had said before that if we were to vote on this, the potential was to get this done this
This
summer.
can be done this summer. Yes.
Okay, so that's good news. Okay, any other questions?
So are we staying with that, or how does the board feel about adding the?
I don't think we need them, but
oh, I'd like the now.
for $6,000.
Yeah,
Well, No?
No.
Am I the only one that likes the M?
That was painful on people.
We have the art club paint the M, is that,
Sure, you can do it on, you can do it some,
okay, well, maybe we should just start with the regular bid as presented on the agenda. Okay. So roll call,
no, we're not gonna use the old
old material.
material.
No.
So
Is
we're
there-
gonna
I
warn
think we
you,
could
right?
sell the old material,
Possibly.
possibly. Okay, well,
We could use. it
there's
to patch
that
it.
right there, that happens. Okay. So roll call. And this is going for the 626.
Singleton,
Yes.
Folkers.
No.
Pivotal,
No.
Trumbull,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Lucky.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to new business, we have the E-rate project.
So E-rate is a program that is run where it allows school districts and municipalities, I believe, to purchase electronic upgrades and networks, systems, and those types of things. What William is proposing is a complete upgrade of our current network to allow more bandwidth to go through, which will address the connectivity issues that we're seeing all around the district. There's a couple things to consider. With E-rate, the district pays 30% of the total cost. In this case, we are approved for $160,000, but when you package and price everything out, what William would like to do, that total comes to $85,480.05. So as I explained in finance and facility, you can approve the 185,480, in which the district's cut would be 30% of the 160 plus the additional overage to meet all of those things. The other option is to, like going to the grocery store and finding out you don't have enough money or you forgot your checkbook or whatever, you have to start taking some things off and putting them back to get down to that 160. So that's another option. The third option is obviously to vote no. In looking at, and I think there's several teachers here who could probably attest to the connectivity issues we have around the district, that it's a much needed upgrade.
And I failed to get a motion, so I apologize.
Oh.
Sorry. So is there a motion?
So moved.
So now we can have discussion, questions.
So how does the 30% of the cost thing work? Just as a business standpoint?
That's just that's the offer they make. I guess I'm not, what
So
does that
we're
come
like,
from?
you're saying, yeah, the total cost of this thing is this amount and you're on the hook for 30%, right?
Yes.
Where are they making back the 70%? Just as a business model, that doesn't seem reasonable to me, so that's why I'm asking.
I don't know.
I think it's like insurance, right?
I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I don't know.
Okay,
It's,
because I mean, there's obviously, this is a good, right?
Yes.
We're getting equipment, that
Yes.
equipment has a cost in the
Yes.
marketplace.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're saying the cost of the stuff in the marketplace is 120,000, we're only gonna charge you 30% of
Yep.
that. So the question is, are they inflating the cost of the thing that they're
No.
presenting to us? Or
No,
how does that work?
it's just a great deal. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it is a government program. They're giving us the money.
Taxpayers are paying for it.
That's the question, that's why I'm asking.
Somebody's paying.
That's why I'm asking, because
I don't think it's like Pentagon paying
you
$700.
can't manifest money.
That also.
Oh, so
I think it's got something to do with like ComEd and electric and some of that stuff, doesn't it? Because it seems like when
No.
Dwayne was here, he would come and I'd have to get him copies of like our ComEd bills, our electric, our.
There's a process that you have to apply for this, and part of the process is the project has to be approved by the board. So by approving it, you're essentially committing to the 30%, and in this case, it would be the 30% plus the difference between what we're eligible for and the total cost. And then William submits it, it gets approved, and then there's a bid process where vendors bid out what, they're willing to pay for it. Now, in this case, it's more than likely the RTI is going to win that bid since they're the ones that proposed
Right.
or calculated it. So to answer Dan's question, there's no rhyme or reason that I'm aware of, other than somewhere along the line, somebody's getting paid, just not from us.
I didn't know if it was that, or if are we are we now locking ourselves into
No.
something that we're, okay?
By approving this, you can still say no, right?
Yeah, we can say no anytime.
We just need the okay to get going, and it needs to be submitted by April 1st, which is why I'm kind of throwing this at you, for which I apologize. We thought we had another month to do it, but it needs to go to the powers that be before that.
Sounds good. Good question. Okay. So let's roll call that. Those are more questions.
Folkerts,
Yes.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Brownville,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Singleton,
Yes.
Lucky.
Yes. Okay, moving on to capital projects.
I wish I had the computer. So we've been talking a lot about projects, and I guess now is a good time to just kind of, when we talk capital projects, that refers to big things. Additions to school buildings, HVAC projects, those are what we would call capital projects. And there's a specific fund that we have. We have 10 different funds, all of which have specific things that you can spend money towards out of those funds. Like, for example, Aaron mentioned the lease fund. We can only spend lease funds on leases, renting things. And as we said, we've done computers, we've done Chromebooks, we've done copiers, all of those types of things. So that's kind of what we can spend. So for capital projects, those are major renovation projects. That's not painting, that's not repairing a fence, that's not doing those minor things. These are big projects. So in order to do those big projects, we have several revenue streams. The biggest one of which is our sales tax balance. And as of last Friday, we have $1.3 million in sales tax revenue. Now, there are specific things that we can use that money for. We can't use that for buses. We can't use that for salaries. We can't use that for computers. We have to use that for upgrades to our facilities. We also have $50,000 in a maintenance grant, and we have $2.6 million remaining in the bonds that we issued in 2023. So all told, we have in revenue $4,035,463. You take out of that, we paid tonight, you approved a bill of $409,000 for the junior high school HVAC. We budgeted $550,000 for the high school doors and $626,000 for the track. So that is expenses of $1.585 million. Subtract your revenue from your expenses, we have $2.5 million available, but we still have $207,000 outstanding for the junior high north side HVAC. So we're sitting right now on March 18th with $2,242,000 in the bank for which we can use to do capital projects.
Minus the sign now. Yeah.
Minus the sign. So we've identified projects such as remodeling and renovating the old bathrooms at the junior high.
Yeah.
Fixing the junior high sign for $22,000, adding high school scoreboards and video boards for $120,000. And then we're looking at things like upgrading the lockers at Southside. If you've been there, they've got sorry, Susie, the small lockers that we don't need as many of, so we would take those out and replace them with bigger, newer lockers. Paint the lockers at the high school, upgrade or replace the junior high lockers. We've discussed fixing the north side gym floor as well as the north side bathrooms. So you take out the $22,000 and the $120,000, that leaves you with $2.1 million left to do any of those projects or other things that you would want.
Has the high school gym floor been talked about?
It has not, it's been brought up unofficially, but I do think that is something you want to consider doing. I think that probably needs to be done. I don't know if that is a priority, but at some point in the next couple of years, I think you need to fix that.
And I think too, as a board, I know everyone has kind of seen some of these things sporadically, whether it's a tour of these so we can kind of rank how we want to spend the money. I know Matt specifically was at the junior high bathrooms and, really expressed, the concern for that. Just so we make sure that we're spending the money effectively and that we're using that money there and getting that stuff done. I think that Scott Johnson, the architect, was going to come up with a quote or on what he thought the bathroom would be, but you were kind of thinking, I mean, we have right here potentially like 100,000, but you know.
I would guess it'll be
Probably more
easy
than that.
6 figures, it'll
Yeah.
probably be $250,000.
Yeah,
Is
so,
this money we have to pay back, or is this just money that we?
At some point, you have to pay back the bond. So you have your $2.6 million has to, plus interest, has to go back at some point. But we use we use sales tax to pay for
pay the
that.
bond, yep. So the sales tax then.
So that's not
covers
passed
that.
on to the taxpayer.
Right.
We do have our 10-year health life safety that, you have your 10-year health life safety, coming up probably this summer, which a number of other projects, probably nothing this big, will be identified.
Right.
And that you can use health life safety dollars, which does transfer over to your tax rate because that's your, you issue health life safety bonds, which you do tax for that.
So is there a reason we have to hold on to a bond balance and not try to pay it down?
That's why you issue the bonds. That's why you ask for the money.
And I think our reasoning when we had issued these originally was that we knew we had a list of things that we wanted to get accomplished. Mainly the track, the doors were one of them, I think some bathrooms. This has kind of always been a running list, knowing that if we ask a bit more than what the HVAC project was gonna be, we can knock some things out at that time and use that bond money for it, so.
The
that was
HVAC came in way under, because
Right.
a couple of the initial bids were over $2 million just for that project, so part of that just came in a lot cheaper than we thought.
You know, and when I think we made that list, it was like 4 or 5 years ago with that, because I remember going through Northside and a few other schools, and so there's probably things that have come up since then that need to be looked at too, so. But yes, Northside gym floor, it's always gonna be at the top of my list.
Any other questions? I know Dan had asked, you know, do we have like a priority list? And I think it's good to kind of keep that running.
Yeah, yes.
Those are fire doors.
They're
They're fire rated, I don't know.
They're solid wood, right?
Yes,
So I mean,
they would be replaced with
So you can't
probably
just
metal
fight
doors.
them down and.
Oh, they're falling.
It's the frames.
The frames are falling
Yeah,
apart.
They're falling off
Oh,
the
yeah.
hinges.
Yeah.
I think what we're talking about is reframing them, because
Yeah.
the building
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
You go up to
I
the
work at
third
it.
floor, and you can
Push them in.
push them in, and they
Maybe I got a tour of that also.
And that may, I mean, health, life, safety, that might not, you know, pass in terms of how it would be assessed.
So the nice thing about the 10-year health life safety, I'll just throw this out to them, is it used to be a way for school districts to get things done that they wanted done. So the architect would come in and say, okay, what do you really want to do? And I remember we said, you really want to do the HVAC? And you say, okay, then we mark the HVAC as, you know, needs to be upgraded, because then you can go out and issue bonds for it, and those costs, unfortunately, then get passed on. But with sales tax, we don't do that anymore, because we don't use health life safety bonds. We take alternate revenue bonds, so it's not costing the taxpayers anymore, anything more. But it's by law, you have to do a 10-year health life safety.
Right.
Usually it's roofs, HVAC, those types of things. There'll be some minor things, but nothing outrageous, other than probably the bathrooms. They may not be 80, those types
Right,
of things.
yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, and that was one thing I think he mentioned about the junior high bathroom is making sure it's ADA compliant with that, so. Okay, any other questions? And we look at this list every month when we meet too in the finance facility too, to just kind of keep on it, but we just want to make sure we're moving along with things as opposed to just talking about it. So I think, you know, you're talking about the bathrooms and with the track, and we're making some progress. Okay, so moving on to cost reduction possibilities.
Again, I apologize for not having a computer. I don't know why it died. So in your board packet, I broke it down. We've been talking about this, and I shared with you the cost saving tool and all that stuff. I broke it down into small rocks, medium rocks, and big rocks. And as you can see, there were some things on the small rock that we were able to cut about 102,000. The medium rock we get to about 600,000, and then the big rock is about $1.1 million. You don't, this is not a one-size-fits-all discussion. There's an a la carte factor to this is, one person may want to eliminate this, one person may not want to eliminate it, but rather, reduce some hours, those types of things. The question came up in finance and facility is, when you're talking about reduction of hours, those would be a RIF. That would be a reduction in force, and we'd have to go through a process with that. There's notifications and those types of things. A RIF isn't always letting somebody go. It could be reducing them from full-time to part-time. I myself was RIFed twice. I was moved from a full-time teacher to a part-time teacher on 2 separate occasions. A RIF is not permanent. If you RIF someone and realize that you need them back full-time, you just simply can bring them back full-time. But there's a process that goes through that. And both the teachers and support staff have that procedure in their contract. Is this something you want me to share with the community as a whole? Or would you rather have more specific ideas before we go?
I think I would wait.
I would wait.
Yeah. And, I think it's,
I don't want to cause a panic. These are all just,
No,
these are
No,
just
I
suggestions.
think it should be taken
Yeah,
out of context.
me too. I would hold off on it.
we're talking funds, this is affecting the ed fund. So, those are kind of, when we were looking at ed fund, that pays, salaries and different things like that, so.
So the two funds in which we are struggling is our education fund, from which 80 to 90% of all expenses in the district are paid from. If you go through the bills, or you read the bills, if you go through the fund balances, you can see the ed fund is 9 pages. We have upwards of 100 different line items in that ed fund. So that fund is dwindling, not because of spendings, but because the costs of salaries and benefits is going up every year. And what we bring in from local property taxes, state aid, and federal aid just doesn't keep up. The other fund that we have an issue with is our operation and maintenance fund, how we run our buildings. We have 3 buildings that are 50+ years old. One building, our newest one, is close to 30 years old. Things are starting to break, things are starting to fall down. So if you have an operations and maintenance budget where you're spending almost $1 million, but you're only bringing in through your tax levy $55,000 to $60,000 a year, your revenue stream, or your reserves are gone. So you have to change something. And unfortunately, in a school district, the easiest and most effective, but the hardest way to cut expenses is people and programs. And so as you continue with these discussions and you look at the future, you have to have those hard conversations, and it's not fun. Like I said, I was ripped twice.
There was always a very healthy working cash fund 15, 16 years ago.
3 years ago, we had almost $1 million in our working cash fund, which is the only fund that you can move money around. If you move money from one fund to another fund, you have to repay that fund. Working cash is really what it is. It's working cash or petty cash if you have something in your office.
Right. And I
But
remember
that now is down to less. That will be gone because we've had to transfer so much money from that to our operations and maintenance fund to keep the buildings running.
And I remember 14 years ago looking at that, but seeing charts in 10 years of, oh my gosh, we're going to get to a point where we're gone, and we're there. And didn't think I'd be back on the board then, but I'm back now.
So the other thing to
So, yeah.
consider for those in attendance and those watching at home, this is a very difficult decision. It's a very difficult conversation. You need to have it now, because if you don't have it now and you get to a point in your budget and your reserves that you can't cover things, the state of Illinois will come in and tell you what you're cutting. So right now, the Board of Education and whoever comes in after me has the ability to make cuts in a way that doesn't affect too many people and the district's ability to run the district, or to educate. If you wait too long, that power is going to be taken from you. And the state's going to come in and say, that's got to go. So just something to keep in mind, and it's not a conversation that everybody wants to have, or no, really anybody wants to have, but it needs to take place.
Any other questions? Good.
And it's not from overspending. It's not. It really, it truly, it really honestly is. It's just expenses, especially insurance, have just skyrocketed on us. Our special ed costs have gone up 75% in 6 years. We're having to send kids to different facilities. It's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you for compiling that. Okay.
Now we're talking about spending.
Yeah, right, I know, that's trying to be clear. So now we're moving on to the high school score and video boards. This is the discussion.
It's just a discussion. So one of the things that came out of finance and facility was we look every year at what our athletic costs are and how much the difference between athletic expenditures and revenue. And one of the ways to possibly increase that revenue was installation of these scoreboards, video boards that you've seen at Fulton has one, Rock Ridge has one, Riverdale has one, several schools in our area have one. There is an initial cost, it's $120,000, which is the proposal. There is a $6,000 recurring subscription to the software, but in talking with the company, the boards pay for them. You're making money in 3 years. And in 3 years, through advertising, you've paid off the boards and you're making money. And now that helps to offset some of those costs that we're incurring with coaching and travel and all that good stuff.
How many advertisers?
As many as you can get. There's also a curriculum that comes with it, the high school, that you can have a high school class where they each are assigned a specific task, like someone is the director, someone is the producer, those types of things. And it shows them and shows the school how to make it an educational tool as opposed to just a scoreboard.
We would be getting 1 or 2.
We would be getting 2. There would be a larger one and a smaller one, which is the recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
That's their recommendation, I should say.
Right. You know, we look at, different cuts, and the easiest thing to look at is anything sports related at this point without cutting. So I think if there's a way to make some money back and preserve programs, I mean, that certainly is something that we can, something to consider. Because I think we're past the point of just, cut. If there's a way to bring revenue in that way, I'm certainly open to that.
For sure. Notwithstanding the cost of operating the program, right? Even if the cost of operating the program is a non-issue, do we have sufficient interest in basketball and volleyball in the future?
Yeah,
such that these programs are going to continue?
Right.
Oh, you had to go there, didn't you?
Seems like a reason.
It's a good question.
It's a very good question. I will say this. I would assume it would be very difficult and be very out of character for a school our size to not offer varsity basketball or volleyball. I would be utterly shocked. I'm sure it's happened, but looking at numbers, I think that's a fair question to ask. But I would be very, very shocked if in 3 years the numbers were such that we weren't offering that program. We get kids coming out because they know they get to play. I mean, they haven't played. So wrestling is going strong. Volleyball has a good base at the younger levels. So those are 2 things there. You can use the scoreboards for graduation. You can use them for you can televise your concerts into the gym and stream them that way. So I think they put in their movie nights. So although it is a athletically designed thing, it is used for other things. But that's a very good question.
My question was, who is in charge of getting the advertisers?
Superintendent.
Okay, so it would be something, that is, we would be, responsible for that. That was my question.
I guess I would like to know more numbers, like you said, Riverdale has it, and Bolton has it, I wanna know how many sponsors do they
Yeah.
have, how much are they charging?
Sure.
Do we have interest in the community
Mhm.
too? Because, I mean, if we're paying 6,000 right off the top every year, we gotta.
Yeah, make sure we're making that back.
6,000.
And the sponsors are only as good as the person going to get them.
Well, that was my question of who is getting that, just to make sure we have that representation.
Is there some length of time they guarantee supporting? I know you're paying a fee every year, but even then,
I would have to look back to the picture. I don't know.
okay,
off the top of my head.
because I hate to get one and then 7 years later, they're going, by the way, we don't support this
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
You're on your
Like
own.
the stuff beside that.
Right. Yeah.
Or they don't support the software.
The software.
Yeah, they're just,
I can reach out to our distributor and see.
Yeah, good questions. Okay. Moving on to the certified staff resignation.
The motion is the Board of Education approves the resignation of Jennifer Streets as the Morrison High School guidance counselor effective June 1, 2024.
Is there a motion? Second. Okay. Can't really have much discussion, so roll call?
Middleton,
Yes.
Brownhill,
Yes.
Wilton,
Yes.
Singleton,
yes.
Walters,
Yes.
Lucky.
Yes. Okay, so at this time, we're done with the open session. We're going to be moving back into closed session. And then nothing will be voted after.
What was that?
Okay.